The first thing the land taught a man was this: some truths were not meant to be witnessed, and yet, at dusk, when the sun bled itself thin across the plains and the wind slowed enough to listen, the rancher saw it anyway. Not clearly, not cleanly, but enough. A movement beyond the cottonwoods, two figures standing closer than law or blood allowed, a woman's hand lifting, hesitating, then resting against a man's chest where it did not belong. The rancher's horse shifted beneath him uneasy, sensing what the man had not yet named. Leather creaked, breath fogged, the sky burned low and amber, throwing long shadows that stretched like accusations across the dust. He should have turned away. Men survived the frontier by knowing when not to look, but he didn't, because the woman lifted her face just enough for firelight to catch her profile, and the world narrowed to that single, impossible sight. The chief's daughter, daughter of blood, daughter of law, daughter of rules that had broken stronger men than him, she stood there in the half, light, hair dark as river depth, braids loosened by the wind, eyes reflecting flame and something else, something unguarded. The man facing her spoke low, words stolen by distance, but the way his hand hovered near her waist told a story older than language. The rancher felt it then, not jealousy, not yet. Something worse. Recognition. The land seemed to hold its breath. Even the insects stilled, as if the plains themselves understood that something sacred and dangerous had just been revealed. A heartbeat later, the woman stepped back. Her hand fell. The fire crackled louder, as if embarrassed to have seen. She turned her head slightly, and for the briefest moment her gaze cut outward, past the trees, past the flame, straight toward him. She couldn't see him, but she felt him. The rancher knew that kind of look. It was the look of someone who sensed fate before it spoke. Then she vanished into shadow. The rancher stayed where he was long after the fire dimmed and the man disappeared. Long after the sky bruised purple and the first stars came out like witnesses that could not be bribed. That was how obsession began, not with desire, but with a secret he was never meant to carry. The rancher lived alone on the edge of land no one wanted until they did. His spread sat where grass thinned into dust and the tribe's hunting grounds blurred into grazing country claimed by paper deeds and rifles. He had built the place board by board, scar by scar, after the war took more than it gave back. The frontier didn't ask where a man came from, only whether he could stand the silence. Most days he could. Evenings were harder. That night he unsaddled without care, fingers stiff, mind louder than the wind. He fed the horse, stoked the fire, watched sparks lift and die like unfinished prayers. His hands moved through habit, but his thoughts stayed trapped in that moment by the trees, her face, the closeness. The way the land itself seemed to recoil, he told himself it meant nothing, a glance, a misunderstanding, but the frontier had taught him another truth. The things that ruin you rarely announce themselves. Sleep came late and shallow. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw firelight against her skin, the quiet gravity of her presence, the rule he had broken simply by knowing she existed that way. By dawn, he had already lost. He met her properly 2 days later. It happened under a sky too wide to promise anything and a sun that offered no mercy. The tribe's people rode in slow and deliberate, not hostile, not welcoming, just present, like the land itself. They came to trade, to speak, to remind the edges of the frontier where lines still existed. The rancher stood near his corral, hat low, hands open. He'd dealt with them before, fairly, carefully. Respect mattered here more than words. Then she dismounted. The world shifted again. Up close, she was nothing like the half-formed image he'd carried since dusk, taller than he'd expected, still as stone when she stood. Her face held strength more than softness, but her eyes, those eyes carried questions they never voiced. She wore simple dress, earth-toned, fitted for movement, not decoration, no jewelry, no show, only presence. The chief spoke first. His voice was calm, practiced, edged with authority earned through blood and time. The rancher answered when spoken to, kept his gaze steady, respectful, but every instinct pulled him sideways. When she finally looked at him directly, there was no surprise in her expression, only recognition. Not relief, not fear, recognition, Something old and dangerous slid into place between them, silent as a knife finding its sheath. She spoke later, when trade slowed and men drifted apart. Her voice was lower than he expected, steady, shaped by the wind. She asked about the land, about the cattle, about the way he'd survived alone so long in a place that punished isolation. He answered carefully, short sentences, no bravado. The wind carried her scent, sage, smoke, something warmer beneath. He felt it settle into his chest where armor used to be. Rules existed for a reason. He knew them all. He did not touch her, did not smile too freely, did not step closer than courtesy allowed. But when she turned to leave, something in her gaze lingered, just a fraction longer than necessary. Enough. Desire on the frontier did not announce itself with poetry. It arrived like thirst. In the days that followed, she appeared in the edges of his life with unsettling regularity, sometimes with others, sometimes alone, riding the boundary lines as if they belonged to her. She never crossed without reason, never lingered without purpose, except once. That evening, the sky burned red again, as if repeating itself for emphasis. She approached on horseback, slow, unarmed. The rancher stepped out to meet her, heart beating harder than any gunfight had ever forced it to. She dismounted without a word. Her horse snorted softly, steam lifting from its nostrils. "You saw something," she said, no accusation, no softness, just truth. The rancher held her gaze. Lying would insult her, silence would damn him. "Yes," he said. The wind pulled at her hair. She didn't look away. "Then forget it. A simple command, a impossible one. I don't know how," he answered. For the first time, something cracked, not fear, something closer to regret. Her fingers tightened briefly, then relaxed. "Some things don't belong to you," she said. "Some things don't belong to anyone." He replied before he could stop himself. The space between them grew heavy, not with threat, but with what lived beneath restraint. She stepped closer, not enough to touch, enough to change the air. "If you keep looking at me like that," she said quietly, "someone will die." The rancher swallowed. Is that a warning or a promise? Her eyes flickered. Just once. Then she stepped back, mounted her horse, and rode away without another word. The dust she left behind settled slowly, like ash. That night, the rancher understood the difference between wanting and choosing. Wanting was easy. Choosing carried weight. He told himself he would keep distance, respect the lines, forget the way her presence bent the world out of shape. But the frontier had never respected intentions. Firelight meetings became accidents. Accidents became silences shared too long. Silences became confessions that stopped just short of words. Once, their hands brushed as he passed her water. Neither pulled away immediately. The touch was brief, almost nothing. It felt like a gunshot. Another time, she stood near his fence, watching the horizon like it owed her something. He joined her without speaking. The sun sank. The world softened. "You live like a man with nothing to lose," she said. "I live like a man who already lost it." He answered, that earned him a look that stayed with him long after she left. Desire grew not from what they did, but from what they refused to do. And that made it dangerous. The land began to whisper. Men noticed, not openly, not yet, but glances lingered. Conversations paused when she passed. The chief watched his daughter with eyes that missed nothing, even when his face revealed little. The rancher felt the weight of it pressing down, tightening the space around him. Still, when dusk came and the sky burned itself thin again, he found himself waiting. So did she. They stood near the fire that night without touching, without speaking. Sparks lifted, the plains breathed, the rules pressed in from all sides. "I should not be here," she said. "No." He agreed, neither moved. Her voice dropped. "If this goes further, there will be no clean ending." The rancher looked at her then, not as a temptation, not as a dream, but as a woman standing at the edge of something that could destroy them both. "Some endings are worth the cost," he said. She closed her eyes. When she opened them again, the choice had already been made, even if neither dared to name it. Above them, the first stars came out, cold and watchful, And somewhere in the dark, unseen by both of them, another truth waited, patient, sharp, and ready to bleed. Because love, when it is forbidden, does not arrive alone, it brings betrayal with it, and the frontier never forgets. Night did not fall all at once, it crept. The fire burned lower, turning wood into memory, and the plains exhaled their heat slowly, like a body refusing sleep. Crickets found their rhythm. Somewhere far off a coyote called, not lonely, not afraid, just stating its place in the dark. She remained, not close enough to touch, not far enough to pretend this was nothing. The rancher felt the shift before it happened. The moment restraint stopped feeling like honor and started feeling like fear. Fear of losing something that had not yet been claimed. She broke the silence first. Her voice was softer at night, as if the stars demanded honesty. When the sky looks like this, she said, eyes lifted, my people believe the world is listening. The rancher followed her gaze. The stars were thick, scattered carelessly, bright enough to make a man believe in mercy. What does it here? He asked. She hesitated. That hesitation carried weight. Promises, she said, and lies. The fire popped. A spark leapt, died. He wondered which one they were standing inside of. She sat then, folding herself near the edge of the firelight, not inviting him, but not refusing him either. He joined her slowly, every movement deliberate, as if sudden motion might shatter the fragile truth forming between them. They spoke of small things first, the land, the seasons, how winter arrived earlier on the plains than men ever expected, how silence could feel heavier than words. She told him about riding alone at dawn, before the camp woke, when the world felt briefly hers. He told her about nights spent mending fences under moonlight, talking to horses because they never judged. Trust did not arrive suddenly, it seeped in. Each shared breath loosened something knotted deep inside him. Each quiet admission smoothed the sharp edge of her vigilance. At some point, without either of them deciding it, the space between their shoulders disappeared, not by inches, by surrender. Her arm rested against his. The contact was light, accidental enough to deny, deliberate enough to feel, neither pulled away. The rancher became acutely aware of her warmth, of the steady calm in her breathing. He wondered how something so simple could feel so dangerous. "You look at me like you're already gone," she said quietly. He turned to her then. The firelight painted her face in gold and shadow, softened the strength without diminishing it. "I look at you like a man who knows he won't survive untouched," he said. She swallowed. Her gaze dropped, not in shame, but in recognition. Outside the circle of firelight, the world felt very far away. Their meetings followed no schedule that made them safer, that made them worse. Sometimes days passed without sight or word. Sometimes she appeared twice in one night, slipping through the darkness like a thought he hadn't finished thinking. They never touched at first, not truly. Their intimacy lived in proximity, in shared glances held too long, in the way her breath caught when his voice dropped, in the way his body leaned toward hers even when his mind warned him back. Once, during a night so still it felt suspended, she spoke of fear. Not of him, of herself. "There are paths you cannot walk halfway," she said. "If you step onto them, they take everything." The rancher nodded. "I've already lost everything once." She looked at him sharply. "That doesn't mean you can afford to lose again." "I don't think I can afford not to," he answered. The truth landed between them, heavy and uninvited. The first touch came without ceremony. Her hand, cold from the night air, brushed against his wrist as she rose to leave. He felt it like a brand. Instinct overruled caution. His fingers closed gently around hers, not claiming, not restraining, just acknowledging. She froze. The world narrowed to skin and breath. He expected her to pull away. She didn't. Instead, she turned her hand, threading her fingers through his once. Brief, electric, devastating. Then she stepped back as if the contact had burned. "Next time," she whispered, voice unsteady, "will not be innocent." She left before he could answer. He stayed long after the fire died, hand still warm, heart no longer obeying reason. The land noticed. Moonlight caught them sometimes, standing too close, moving in quiet symmetry. The grass bent beneath shared footsteps. Horses grew restless, sensing tension their riders refused to name. Rumors did not yet have words, but they had shape. The rancher felt it in the way men looked at him now, curious, measuring, not accusing, but aware. Still, hope is a stubborn thing. He began to imagine a world where rules bent, where love outweighed law, where the chief's daughter could choose a man not written into her fate. He imagined mornings, shared silence, a life carved slowly from resistance. It was a beautiful illusion, and it grew stronger each time she returned. The night it finally broke into something more. The sky was cloudless and vast, stars pressing down like witnesses who refused to look away. They met far from the ranch, where grass rolled untouched and the fire could be small, hidden. The wind moved gently, almost kind. She stood close now, too close. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with decision. "I cannot keep pretending this is nothing," she said. The rancher reached for her face, stopping inches away, giving her every chance to stop him. She didn't. His fingers brushed her cheek, warm, real. Her breath shuddered, and with it the last fragile barrier fell. The kiss was not desperate, it was reverent, slow, careful, as if both understood that once begun, there would be no returning to who they were before. Her hands gripped his coat, not pulling him closer, anchoring herself. His arms circled her, protective, aching, restrained only by the knowledge that restraint was already slipping away. When they parted, foreheads touching, the night seemed louder. "This changes everything," she whispered. "Yes," he said, "it does." She laughed softly then, not happy, not sad, just overwhelmed. They lay beneath the stars later, side by side, not crossing every line, but enough to make the rest inevitable. Her head rested against his chest. His heart betrayed him with every beat. He traced patterns on the ground, grounding himself in earth and breath for a moment. Just a moment. Peace existed, hope breathed. But unease has a way of finding cracks. She grew distant after that night, not absent, but guarded. Her smiles arrived slower. Her eyes scanned the darkness more often, as if expecting something to step out of it. Once, when he reached for her, she flinched before catching herself. "Someone is watching," she said. "Who?" he asked. She shook her head. "Not someone, something." The rancher felt it too then, the subtle tightening of the world, the way silence pressed closer, the way the stars felt less forgiving. Still, when she kissed him good, by that night it was with a desperation that felt like apology. He watched her disappear into the dark, heart full, unease blooming. Above him, clouds began to drift across the moon, dimming the light. Love had taken root beneath silent skies, but shadows were already gathering, and somewhere beyond the firelight a truth waited, patient, inevitable, ready to step forward and claim its due. The clouds did not rush the moon. They moved slowly, deliberately, like a hand closing over light. The rancher felt the change before he understood it. Love had settled into his bones, but so had something colder, an awareness that peace had begun to ask questions. She still came, but not the same way. Her laughter thinned, her eyes searched the dark before meeting his. When he touched her now, she sometimes held still first, as if listening for permission that did not come from him. He noticed the absences. Not long enough to accuse, just long enough to wonder. There were nights she promised to return and didn't. Mornings when word reached him that she'd been seen riding hard toward the northern ridges, alone, urgent. Once he found tracks near the creek that were not hers, heavier, wider, cutting close to where they had lain beneath the stars. He said nothing. Doubt, like love, grows stronger when left unspoken. The land began to whisper names it never finished saying. Men spoke quieter when he passed, a glance here, a pause there. Something old, something bound by oath, moved through the air like a memory refusing burial. One night, thunder rolled without rain. She arrived late, breath tight, eyes rimmed with something close to fear. "You should stop seeing me," she said. The words landed wrong. Too sharp, too sudden. He searched her face. "Is this what you want?" She didn't answer immediately. That was answer enough. "Someone else wants what you're standing in," she said instead. His jaw tightened. "Who?" Her silence stretched thin. Then she turned away, as if the truth weighed too much to face him with. That night, when she left, she did not look back. The rancher stood alone under a broken sky, thunder muttering overhead, understanding finally that love had invited a shadow he could no longer ignore. Morning arrived without mercy. Fog lay low, pale and cold, pressing against the earth as if trying to hide what it could not undo. The rancher rose before the sun, unrest clawing him awake, and followed instinct where reason failed. He found them where the land narrowed and sound carried poorly. She stood beside a man he did not know, but recognized instantly. Older, broader, marked by authority earned in ways gentler men never survived. Her hand rested in his, not hesitantly, not secretly, bound. The word struck before the understanding did. Husband, oath, bearer. Chosen long before the rancher ever learned her name. She did not see him at first. The man spoke low, fingers brushing her wrist in a gesture practiced and intimate. When she finally turned, the fog thinned just enough for their eyes to meet. Time broke, her face emptied of color, her lips parted then closed as if no language could survive this moment. The rancher did not move, could not. His chest felt carved open, breath slicing shallow and sharp. Every promise replayed itself and died in the cold air. She stepped toward him once, one step, then stopped. The man followed her gaze. Understanding passed between them without words. The rancher turned away before dignity could bleed out entirely. He walked back through fog and silence, each step heavier than the last, carrying a truth that burned worse than any bullet. By the time the sun rose, love was already dead. Anger arrived clean. It cut through grief, through humiliation, through the hollow ache left behind. It gave the rancher something to stand on. They confronted him by firelight that night, the three of them, no longer pretending the land had not seen everything. The husband spoke of law, of binding, of promises older than desire. She spoke of fear, of duty, of a heart split down its center. The rancher spoke last. "I would have walked away," he said quietly, "if I had known the truth." Her eyes filled, but she did not deny it. Honor demanded blood. Love demanded silence. The frontier demanded a choice. Hands hovered near weapons. Breath thickened. Fire roared higher, fed by rage and regret. For one terrible moment, everything balanced on the edge of violence. Then she stepped between them. "If blood is spilled," she said, voice steady despite the tears, "it will stain us all." The men lowered their hands, not in peace, but in restraint. The cost of love had already been paid. More would not bring justice, but the fire remembered, and so did they. Truth does not stay buried on the frontier. It surfaced in whispers first, then in looks, then in judgment spoken aloud beneath storm, dark skies. The tribe gathered, the land bore witness. Oaths were named, wrongs measured, silence weighed. The rancher stood alone before them, stripped of illusion, heart scarred open. He did not beg. He did not accuse. He accepted the cost of loving what was never free. The decision came without ceremony, exile, not of body but of belonging. She watched as it was spoken, hands clasped tightly, eyes hollow. The husband stood rigid, victorious without triumph. Justice, the frontier kind, rarely felt clean. Rain fell then, hard, sudden, washing dust into blood, colored streams. The rancher left before dawn. Time softened nothing. It only taught him how to carry the weight without collapsing beneath it. Seasons turned, grass grew back where fires had burned. Silence became familiar again. He saw her once more, years later, at the edge of the plains where sunset bled gently into night. They did not speak of love. They did not speak of loss. They stood together in shared memory, knowing some truths survive only by remaining unclaimed. When she left, it was for the last time. The rancher watched the horizon until light faded completely. On the frontier, love was never gentle. It demanded truth, paid for lies in blood or absence, and left scars no silence could heal. What begins in shadow may feel like fate, but only what survives the light earns peace.